Hello, and welcome to Ashley Mae Makes. Today, I'm recreating a skirt from 1954. I'm using McCall's 3059 to recreate this pattern, which is an 8-gore skirt with a dart in each. There are two versions of this pattern. One is stiffened and with or without a self belt. It's all pretty straightforward. There are only 6 pieces to this pattern: a front, back, side back, waistband, and optional belt. So, to recreate this pattern, I'm going to be using the Charm Patterns Stanwyck Skirt, which is a 6-gored skirt with optional pockets with the front and back cut on the fold. This skirt comes in a size range from 2 through 20, which is a size 24 to 42. Now, full disclosure, this skirt technically doesn't fit me. Now, I did end up grading it 3 whole sizes according to the size chart, which should have been the right size, but actually ended up being too big. This is pretty common where a single block has been scaled up and starts to get a little wonky towards the end. Me pushing it past its limit even, it's to be expected there might be some errors, which I should have checked for earlier on in the pattern. Since the recording of this video, Charm Patterns has actually come out with a second plus size block, which will hopefully address some of these issues, and that will extend their size range up to a 34, which would be a 56-inch waist. Now, I don't know if this pattern will be expanded in the future, or if they plan to, or any of that. I'm just reporting on the information as it is. There has been a fair amount of controversy as of late surrounding Charm Patterns and their size range, and for the time being, I am sort of in a wait-and-see mode. I'm very grateful that they have expanded their size range, and I am seeing this as a bit of a goodwill effort, and I am happy to support anyone who's expanding into plus, but I understand if you're feeling a little sour about it. Please let me know. I have some other charm patterns on the docket that I'm thinking of doing, but if that's not something you'd like to see, let me know. This being my first YouTube video, I just thought it would be a waste to not put this out there, considering I'd spent so much time and effort on it, and I do think some of the math in grading and scaling is still really valuable to see in use of other patterns. You could definitely use something like the Cashmere Upton gored skirt. That would give you sort of a similar effect, but it's not quite as full. And I think in the future I might even look at putting together a drafting video for this particular skirt, so let me know if that's something you'd like to see. Just some quick fabric notes here. I used what's called an Essex linen blend, which is a 50-50 cotton linen blend from fabric.com. I used 4 yards at 45 inches wide. So, I'm going to start out looking at the belt piece, which we're not actually going to be using, but I just thought I'd show you. I'm actually missing the waistband piece of this pattern, which is the only piece I'm missing, which is not critical. And we're starting out with the front. So it's actually marked where that stiffening would end, in theory, right on the pattern, which is kind of nice. And then there's that easy rule that they were marking. And the cool thing is, whoever had this pattern before has actually used it and has folded the pattern up and had pinned it, which is kind of neat. And then looking at the dart, they actually have instructions on how you would do a dart. So I'm just measuring the width of that. And then I'm going to be measuring the length of the dart, which is 4¼ inches. And then I'm going to be measuring the total length of the skirt. So the actual length is down to that stiffening line minus the hem, which is 27 inches, which is actually my perfect skirt length. So I don't have to mess with the length at all. It's kind of fun that me and whoever had this skirt before are on the same wavelength. More instructions, and I'm just measuring all the width and taking note of them for my grading up, which is nice. And the other cool thing is, like, whoever had this before loved this pattern. They'd made a lot of versions of it. It's pinked all the way around the edges, so they'd obviously cut it straight out with pinking shears. More instructions. There's a close-up of that easy rule. And yeah. So, we're gonna do some math. It's not scary, I promise. So, these are the original widths of all the darts of all the panel pieces. Now, I'm going to take the original dart measurement, which is 5/8 in this instance, and multiply it by my size, which is 52 inches, then divide it by the original size, which is 28 inches, and that gives me a grand total of 1.16 inches, and I'm going to round that for my sanity to 1 1/8 inches. And then you're going to want to rinse and repeat that for each of the panels. So once I did the math, this is how my measurements compare to the original, and these are the measurements I'm going to be implementing on my version of the pattern. And here's all that math together. Feel free to take a screen cap of this and do this with your own measurements. Alright, so we're going to jump on over to the charm pattern that's going to become my version of this pattern. And here I am just tracing a copy of my already graded up skirt panel, and I'm just transferring all the markings and then finding the halfway point at the top of the panel and connecting it up with the halfway point that's already on the pattern. And that's going to be our spacing for our new dart. And then I'm just going to go ahead and start cutting it out to my length. Now, I just got lazy and printed off another copy of the pattern. It just seemed easier to me because I have it in PDF. And here I am wrestling with trying to add the space to center of my pattern. Why, oh why, Ashley, did you not iron these pattern pieces? Instead, we're going to use 1,000-pound weights, because that's easier, right? Anyway, here I am marking that distance that we found in the math portion of the video, the inch and some, depending on which pattern piece it is. And then I am just going to connect those up to put our other half of our pattern back together. And I'm going to tape it back together. Again, fighting with the curling pattern pieces, as will continue to be a trend with this project. It's really a lesson in ironing, mostly. Why? And we're just going to tape it to keep it flat and flip it back over. Now I'm straightening up the edge. And then I'm going to mark the center of that spacing so that I can add in the dart from the original pattern. And I'm marking the 4 1/4 inch down and then drawing in my dart legs, which is the edge of the spacing. I'm cutting it out for some reason to mark it here. I don't know what I was thinking. You can actually fold it up and that'll give you your dart kind of cornered to that. So now we're jumping over to a cutting montage of me holding everything down with salmon cans. So enjoy! Alright, so this is actually the next day. It took me a minute to wrap my brain around how I was going to do a slash pocket on an already slanted side seam. So here I am looking at my two favorite pocket patterns. So this one is the Helen's Closet based one that I drafted using her method, only I've actually made it quite a bit deeper to fit my hand. And then this is the Cashmerette pocket, and it's actually free on the Curvy Sewing Collective website, so I'll put both those links down below. I'm just using some tape to lightly stick this down to the pattern while I do some tracing. I've lined this up with my favorite slash, and so I'm basically getting a hybrid of the two patterns. And then I'm just using some trace here over top. This is actually like a big roll left over from design school. And then I'm just looking at where that line is going to be to connect it to the top of the skirt. Now, I like to connect my pockets to the top of my skirt to reduce the weight of whatever's in my pocket off my side seam, just so the pocket lays a little nicer, but also so that it's not just like flapping around in my skirt or my dress. So this is definitely my preferred method, although it does take a little bit more fabric because obviously you're connecting it. It's actually quite a good chunk of fabric, so do bear that in mind if you do this. So I'm just roughly estimating where that'll be once that dart is already in place. Just kind of giving myself lots of room. And then I'm just tracing around the curve of that pattern, kind of to the roundest part. Well, actually I'm taking it all the way around, but kind of looking at the outside roundest part here and then connecting it back up to that waistband. Kind of eyeballing this here. There's no real rule. You don't want to go too far in, otherwise kind of defeats the purpose, but also it doesn't have to be like straight, so kind of is weird on this one with the slanted side seam. And just make sure you mark your pattern piece. You'll really thank me later on that one. Marking. Alright, so here we go on the side front skirt panel. And I'm just folding back where that slash is on the pocket. And I'm transferring that to my skirt panel. Now, next time I would probably do this straight on my paper pattern and mark it on my paper pattern, but because it took me a hot minute to figure this out, we're just doing this instead. But like I say, if I made this again, I would just put it right on the pattern. Here I am just folding up that dart, seeing what that looks like, just making sure I like the look at that. Obviously I did, because I just jumped ahead and cut it straight off. No thought. We're going with this plan, apparently. And then I'm just matching it up with the opposite side, and then just cutting that off so that they both match. Flipping it around. This is my scrap. Trying to see if I can fold it. Nope. And here I am realizing I forgot to mark a grain line on this pocket piece. So I'm just marking approximately where straight up and down is, taking a look at it. So that way it makes it a little easier. Here I am trying to like eyeball, see what's going on to line it up with the grain line. It's pretty important actually, so your pockets don't stretch out with use. I've made that mistake before. And cutting. I'm cutting single fold here because I had this weird scrap. But you can cut this double. And luckily there's no right and wrong side, but I still flipped over my pattern piece because you want to make sure you have an opposite set, one on each side. More cutting, more sliding my pattern weights around. These aren't actually pattern weights, by the way, they're just like from the hardware store. They're just giant washers. Snatching my pattern. Okay, so I'm folding down that slash again and just tagging it down with a bit of tape. You could cut two separate pattern pieces if you wanted, one for lining, one for regular, but one is good for me. And then this is my pocket lining, which is just like a vintage, it's a piece of a vintage bed sheet actually that I was using for mock-ups, so I think it'll be really cute. Just cutting. I think my wrist was getting sore at this point, I don't know. Alright, and then you can see where that slash is now, how that's more of a slash piece. So the darts, these are the side fronts. This is my front, same darts, and and they're actually pinned ready to roll here on the front to sew the front seam together. Woo woo. And you can kind of see that extra room that's created by that dart there. It's kind of what I loved about this pattern initially, is kind of that extra belly room. And so this is that slant edge that I added. And I'm gonna get going putting in the pockets. Alright, so this is the front complete. See those slash pockets there, and then you can almost see the darts on the panel. Dart, split, dart, split, dart, pocket. I wasn't bang on here, but I tried. I'm sure it'll be close enough when I get down to it to attach the back. And here's the inside, same front panel. And I've pinked all my edges just like the gal had originally, just for authenticity's sake. I did all these after the fact though, because I wanted to keep them a little bit nicer and a little bit straighter. Kind of a fun detail here, I used kind of an embroidery stitch on my machine to align the pockets just to give them a bit more strength. Doesn't really matter, it doesn't really look like anything. But yeah, you can see how big those pockets are. So I think that's going to be great. I'm kind of happy with my decision in the end. Look at that. It's fun. Lined up with that fabric. But yeah, on we go. Now we're going to go make the back. Alright, so here's the back of the skirt, all put together and completed. And I'm going to hook that up with the front. As you can see, I didn't put those darts in, but I do have the spacing for them, so that'll give me the extra room for the elastic that I'm going to put in the back here. And of course we've got our selvages. You've got one on each side, that'll prevent it from stretching out and warping. And I just pinked it anyway, just to get the fuzzy bits off, and again, sort of to pay homage to the original pattern. So we're going to go ahead and put front and back together, throw the zipper in, and then we're almost done. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and put the lap zipper in. Obviously I'm doing this one on the side, but you could definitely do this one on the back. And I have sewn it all the way up the side, obviously, and I'm actually going to, and then I ironed it super flat. So I'm going to pick down to where the end of the zipper is, just to get it really smooth. So I'm just going to take my zipper here. This is probably a little longer than I actually need, but this is a 12-inch for reference instead of, probably could have done a 9, but of course they're out of stock of 9 and I could cut it down, but I'm not going to. So having the stopper is a little bit better. So I'm just going to mark the end of the line here. That's probably about where we need to end. And I'm going to go ahead, pick down to there, and then get going doing the lap zipper. Alright, so here we are again, just checking in. So obviously I got that stitched down to my end, past my end point here, ripped out, and then I've actually glued this side down. That's going to be the kind of not lapping side, just with some Fabri-Tac to make it easier on myself, instead of pinning it all the way around. And so I'm just going to run a stitch along there, and then this is my front. I'm probably going to pin that, make that a little easier on myself, but and then eventually I will just stitch this all the way wrong, so it will just be lightly lapped over the zipper like so, and you won't even see it. Alright, so the lap zipper is finished. Beautiful. You can see the overlap there, though I'm hoping I still have enough space to get my hand into the pocket comfortably. But I think it looks great. I have a nice little end point here. I actually ended up throwing a couple hand stitches in here at the bottom just to crisp this up a bit. We're good to go. So now I get to put the waistband on. Almost there. Alright, so I've let the skirt hang for 24 hours. And then I've marked it equally all the way around here. And you can tell, you can see that this is where, this is the two that are meeting that aren't on the selvage. So that you can see that this is stretched the most. All the way up, smaller, 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 smaller. All the way up to the one where the selvage edge is. So you can see how that really helps prevent the stretching and warping over time. Anyway, I'm gonna true this up now, since we obviously have stretched. And then I'm gonna get to folding and hemming. Right, so I finished ironing this. Now I've unfolded it again, and I've just got some of this flexi lace hem facing here, the wide stuff, pinned along the edge, just to be able to finish off the hem. I just thought this would be a nice vintage touch, and I didn't quite have enough fabric to do a self-facing. It's still gonna be really cute though, it kind of matches my pockets. So I'm gonna swap my thread out, and I'm gonna use this for the top and leave the bobbin as the green, and then I'm gonna hand stitch with the green back on. So I'll show you when I get to that point. So this is deeply aggravating. I have this much hem left. I've used 2 packages of facing, and that wasn't quite enough. And you know why? Because you only get 2.5 yards in this wider one versus the regular. You get 3 yards, so 2 packets would have been more than enough of the thinner stuff. But I was trying to be fancy, and I love the look of it, and I've already got 2 packets worth stitched on for a grand total of 5 yards. So I will have to venture to Joann's or order some or do something to finish this hem, which is exceptionally annoying, but we will do that. Small interlude. Erg. Pure helpfulness right here. Stink. Are you sitting on the project and it's not even done yet? And you're knocking it off the table. Great. It's going super well. But at least you can tell it doesn't get cat hair on it as readily. Or maybe it does. Maybe I'm just lying to myself. Yes. Yes. Hello. Alright, so after a small stink interlude and a trip to Joann's, I've got this pinned on here. And I'm just gonna sew straight across, just like down this line. Normally on bias stuff, obviously you would like cut it on the bias and like sew it on the bias, but I'm not gonna worry about it too much because this is hard enough to sew as it is, and I think with the stretch in it, it'll be fine. Also, just general annoyance about having to go back and get new stock. This new lace is a lot stiffer than the other lace that I have, which honestly is kind of nice if that's how it's gonna be, but it doesn't really match, and it's like slightly, just like ever so slightly larger in these loops than the other one. So that's irritating. I don't think you can really tell when they're lined up together, but this is another reason why it's always good to get stuff in the same batch, because you might not always be able to go back, but I thought I had enough, and clearly I didn't, so there's that. Oh yeah, also I ended up paying like 3 times as much for it because I didn't get it on sale, and if you know anything about Joann's, if you're not buying it on sale, you're getting ripped off, so there's that. So anyway, I'm gonna put in this last bit of lace, finally, and then we're basically all done but the hand sewing. I'm probably gonna give it a press too, so I'll show that when we get there. So this is the lace on, and it should be a soft enough curve that I shouldn't have to throw a gathering stitch on the top here. and I didn't. I think it'll be all right. Since I'm hand sewing it anyway, it's not that big of a deal. If it's not like perfectly 100% flat, I can kind of work it out as I'm sewing. I'm just going to give it a light press here. I've got my iron on really quite low, but warm enough that I can have the steam on just to help. I mean, it's nylon, that's not really going to help that much, but it'll help get the creases out. So you're going to see that. You're going to see me pressing it out. Some nice lace content. Whoop. As you can see, that looks really cute and nice and flat now. So it'll be nice and easy to sew right along there and give us that nice curve hem. Looks really good from the outside. And away we go, it's cute detail. Okay, so that was all fine and dandy until we got to this evil section, of course. You can see where it jumps up to this slightly bigger and slightly harder slice of lace, and now it's very ripply and terrible. So I retract what I said. Hopefully the new lace is not like this, because this is making this a lot harder. And I'm gonna do my best. I'm still really annoyed. This is why we always have extra craft shit, Mom. I really am kicking myself that I didn't buy more of this at Christmas time. Yeah, so I'm gonna do my best. We're gonna see how it goes. Like see even this part that I haven't pressed yet. Look how much nicer that lays compared to this. This is supposed to have some stretch in it. This is a thinner one. Yeah, it's supposed to be the same flexi lace though, so it's just very frustrating. This has almost no flex to it, whereas the other one has that bit of flex in it that allows it to curve better. So frustrating. So you're gonna see me trying to press this shenanigans. Hopefully you won't really notice in the real garment. This is sort of on the back, on the side, so I'm hoping when all's said and done you won't really be able to tell unless you're like staring at my hem, and if you are, you're a weirdo. So yeah, let's try and press these shenanigans. Kind of hovering here. Hopefully give this a better shot. Although this is, again, it's nylon, so it's not really going to shrink like a cotton or a linen or something would to like conform to the shape. When I was doing this on like the original hem of this, so this is just shenanigans. Hopefully I can do a better job when I'm hand stitching it down, that it'll just sort of sit down a little bit. And maybe some heat will, kind of hoping the steam, it seems like this is starched. So maybe if I give it like a little bit of juice here, it'll, I don't want to melt it either though, it's a fine line of like, let's steam it and let's melt it. And am I melting it? It seems a little hot. It's helping with that starchy feeling though. Probably melting it a little bit, but you will conform to my will. Okay. Getting there. I've got like this crease here. It's frustrating me. I just want a pretty lacy hem. And I was like, oh, I don't have enough fabric. This is the solution. I'll use a vintage hem technique. I'm sure it was better quality back in the day too. I had some original lace tapes that were my Nana's, and they were really nice. And of course this is just Wright's stuff from Joann's, so apparently variable in texture and quality and just general annoyance. So I think we've almost got it. good enough anyway to hand stitch it down. I think that's close to as good as we're gonna get here. You will bend to my will. Friggin' crease, man. Ripples I'm okay with. Creasing I'm not as thrilled about. That one I think I'm just gonna have to live with. Hovering. Yeah, that one I might have to just live with. Looks okay. I think I sort of melted it, but let's see. Give you a little bit of show and tell here. So, not 100%. You can kind of see maybe some of that rippling in there. I've got this friggin' crease that I can't seem to get to do anything other than that. That's very frustrating. This part's basically at the back though, so hopefully it'll be okay. I'll maybe try and work some of it out when I'm hand stitching it down. That is so frustrating though. This is another thing, and always buy more than you need. Because, like, look at this difference here, this jaunt between the wider width. Here you can clearly tell it's a bit wider. This crease is so annoying. Rah. Okay. Maybe I'll give it one more pull. Arg. Okay, there we go. Sometimes just holding it for a minute until it starts to cool down. It's especially easy because it's not that hot. It's just like warm. So sometimes just holding it. That's why sometimes people use clappers, but like shirts and stuff. But anyway, well, that's sadly as good as it's gonna get. I don't think you'll really be able to tell in the grand scheme of things when I'm wearing it if I back up. You can mostly just see where the seams are, which kind of unavoidable, but generally looks pretty uniform. So anyway, let's roll ahead. Yay! Maybe. Alright, so we're on the home stretch here. This is all sewn down all along here, and then I've got my safety pin stuck onto my elastic. I'm going to be threading through here. This is going to be kind of interesting. I don't know if this is correct or right, but I left this open here on the very end so I can pull it through and get it sorted. Then I'm probably going to do a couple rows of stitching down so that this end can lay over top, and then we'll throw like a hook and eye on there, maybe two. So I'll keep that closed. But yeah, so that's all. It's all good. Then we'll have to stitch these closed, obviously, once we get that elastic in there. And then I also finished the hem. Woo! Look at that. It's actually really pretty with the lace. I really like it. I did leave a gap in here as well. I could just leave it like this and stitch it all the way up, but I want to try throwing some horsehair braid in here, which I think I mentioned earlier, just to keep that more full shape without doing the interfacing like the pattern originally had. It's just an option. You can actually like hem with this stuff, but I wasn't sure how I would feel about it in the end, so if I hate it, I can just pull it out of here and I don't have to have it anymore. I might end up tacking it down in a couple places just so it sits right along the edge, but that's why I had this inch wide here, so that hopefully it'll be mostly covered by that and you won't really see it. It'll just be like a nice bouncy hem. Yeah, so I'm gonna get this in there, then do the last stitching, and then you're probably gonna see the final reveals. Woot! So in conclusion, I am medium happy with this skirt. I think a lot of the details are really great, like the slash pockets that I put in, and that nice lapped side zipper. I think those really elevate the garment. I also do really like the color and the fabric I chose, and all of that's great. The largest issue, of course, is the sizing, and I think I will end up going back in, taking the waistband off, and taking in the gores all the way around just to make it a better size and actually have the elastic do its job. The other thing I might take out, sadly, is the horsehair braid that I put in the hem. I spent a lot of time off camera sewing that in, but I think it's just making it too stiff and crumply, and I'm going to have to rehem the whole thing, which is a huge amount of work on a circle of the circumference of this size. But I think it'll be worth it in the end, because overall I do think it's a really great piece, and all I would really adapt for the next time is the sizing, so that's great. So let me know what you liked about this video, what you didn't like about this video, what you think I should tweak for the next one. And also do let me know your thoughts about Charm Patterns. If you have any strong feelings one way or another, I'd really like to know for moving forward on the content of this channel. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. Please like and subscribe down below. I would really appreciate it. I'm a new channel, so it would really help me out. And thanks so much for watching. Bye!